Defense attorneys say Jordan Graham should be allowed to change her guilty plea in the death of her newlywed husband in Glacier National Park, arguing prosecutors distorted evidence that sent her to prison.
Now, the arguments are in a lengthy brief filed with the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. They argue prosecutors distorted evidence that sent her to prison for more than 30 years. Dennis Bragg studied the court documents and has our story.
At first, Graham fabricated stories about the fate of Cody Johnson, her husband of 8 days, when he vanished in July 2013. But as those stories unraveled, she'd admit to pushing Johnson over the cliff at the Loop Trail off the Going to the Sun Highway during a heated argument about the relationship. Graham changed her plea to guilty before her December trial was over in exchange for charges of first-degree murder and making false statements to police being dropped. She tried to withdraw that plea later after prosecutors argued for a higher sentence, saying there was premeditation. Donahoe argues the government's effort from beginning to end was nothing but a kaleidoscopic set of theories in search of evidence the government was willing to distort and shape to suit its purposes. Donahoe claims Kalispell detectives didn't follow Montana law, allowing FBI agent Stacy Smidala to be a surprise addition to a July 16th interrogation that wasn't completely recorded. He says that resulted in a false statement. Graham walked away and then returned to push Graham in the back. Donahoe also blasts the government's handling of the so-called black cloth blindfold found downstream from Johnson's body. He argues it wasn't brought up until after Graham had been charged with second-degree murder, questioning whether the blindfold theory was brought to the grand jury at first or only raised after questions developed over Smidala's false statements. It is unlikely that the government charged this case on the theory that the appellant blindfolded Mr. Johnson with the black cloth before pushing him off the cliff. Donahoe accuses the government of overcharging the case and for the first time gives an indication of why Graham changed her plea shortly after the pictures of the cloth had been shown to the jury. Donahoe writes, considering that the record emerged in a condition where the government was at liberty to argue its contradictory blindfold theory, appellant accepted the government's last-minute offer to plead guilty to second-degree murder in exchange for dismissal of first-degree murder. In Missoula, Dennis Bragg, MTN News.
Among the things Donahoe is asking the appeals court for is to hear oral arguments in the case to determine the nature, extent, and impact of the government's misconduct and prohibit the government from retrying Graham for murder or any other offense. We'll hear the government's response in the next couple of weeks.